Welcome to Equitas Insights, a series of conversations with industry leaders that provide an in depth understanding on the relevant topics in the HR and recruitment industry. This month, we have the opportunity to speak with Bradie Speller, who is in charge of D&I recruiting at Dell Technologies and current Director of Strategy and Transformation at UPS Global Headquarters, to discuss the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace and the cost of not addressing it.
Thank you, Bradie, for taking time to speak to me today.
Thank you, Rachel.
No worries. The first question I want to ask is, how important is diversity in the workplace?
Okay. Diversity is extremely important in a workplace. Diversity has to really do a lot more with the ability of people coming together from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different points of view, different education, and different ways of thought of looking at solving complex business problems. So the focus is around diversity is the more people you have in a room that can look at complex problems from different perspectives and be able to bring their experience, bring their storytelling, bring their knowledge and skills to the table to be able to solve more complex problems is an advantage that a company will have. If you have a homogeneous environment, people that have the same cultural bent, people that have the same ethnicity bent, sometimes it's very difficult to get people to see problems from a different perspective. Okay, so diversity of thought equals diversity of people, and solving problems from a technology perspective, for example, or new business challenges that companies are facing on a daily basis, digital transformation, market demands, changes in the marketplace, supply chain issues. There are a ton of things that are going on in the workplace right now that's going to force organizations to constantly be agile, to constantly transform themselves, to streamline their business processes, and to implement in a very fast fashion in order to be able to react to and or predict market conditions. So having diversity in the room, from the boardroom all the way down to the shop floor or the desk level, for lack of a better term, is going to be the advantage that companies have to get where they want to go for the future. Okay?
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so in terms of, to say there's a lack of diversity in the workforce, like what would you say is the impact of this and maybe the problems that can arise from this?
So the lack of diversity in the workplace causes, a few things to happen. One of the things that we did at Dell, which was revolutionary at that time. This was 1997 when we brought in the director of diversity and inclusion, and I became part of that team. We recognized that as a growing company, we needed to expand the field of people that we were going to bring into the organization. We needed to open up the doors of opportunity inside the company, and we also needed to support doors of opportunity opening in the community that we worked in. So we participated in a number of social impact activities outside of Dell. We were a key player in a number of different, I wouldn't call them philanthropic efforts, but efforts to increase our participation in the social responsibility side, sustainability side of the community that we worked in Austin, Texas. So the importance, I think one of the things that companies are beginning to recognize now is that if you don't have a diverse workforce, it can impact your brand. If you are selling to one group of people, but the group of people that you're selling to don't see people that look like them, think like them, walk like them, talk like them in your company, that will be an impact on your brand long term. And folks will begin to realize that, I don't know why I'm spending my money with this company when they don't do anything for people that look like me. So that's at the root level. Racism has been an issue in the United States for hundreds of years. It is still an issue. And I think people are beginning to wake up now to the fact that there has been a major impact on not only economics, but a major impact on society as well because of the word discrimination. And racial discrimination is probably the better term to look at. So when you take the amount of issues that are arising from racial discrimination, Citigroup did a report recently about 100 and so pages, but it's a very detailed report around the economic impact of racism in the United States. Since the year 2000 alone, the U.S. has lost $16 trillion, $16 trillion in GDP, gross domestic
Wow.
product. That's huge. So now that's at the high level, at the government level, in terms of the way they report it. But that's got to also trickle down to the companies that perform the work within the United States. It gets down to the economy of the people who live in the United States. It gets down to credit lines. It gets down to a number of different financial factors that are impacting our ability to be able to increase our GDP on an annual basis. So, and there was another number that said if we begin to attack the racial problem from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective in the workplace over the course of the next 7 years, that we can actually add $5 trillion to the GDP in the United States. That's huge. That is huge. So I'm hoping that companies begin to understand that there's talent out there, that they don't necessarily have to look into traditional places to find that talent. They need to give people opportunities that they may not have had before, and they give folks a chance, give them a chance to succeed. And by giving an individual, giving a group of people a chance to succeed and bringing them into the workforce, you add the diversity piece, but you also add the inclusion. But then there's another one that we got to talk about, which is equity.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I mean, in the UK, you normally just talk about D&I, and I think there's that move that we need to start talking more about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, how would you say? What would be your tips on how we can provide more equal opportunities in the workforce to all?
Right. So equity becomes the next most important concern. So that's
Yeah.
why back in the days here, 20 years ago, it was D&I, and people are still using the term D&I, diversity and inclusion. But equity now is really becoming the issue, and we're talking about economic equity. We're talking about equal opportunity to be able to participate in workforces, be able to participate in the global economy, being able to participate in adding value to your community, adding value to your family, adding value to the place that you work. Okay? So typically, one of the biggest problems that we've had here in the United States is pay equity. Just take pay equity, for example. The federal government has passed legislation, but it's still a problem. We know that women make maybe 86% of the dollar that a white male would make in the United States. And for African American women, it's even less. For African American men, it's even less. For Hispanic men and women, it's even less. For Asian men and women, it's less. So there needs to be if a person is doing a job at a manager level, and if they've got 10 years of experience, and another person over here of color or the different persuasion has the same experience, they should be making the same money, but they're not. Women typically here, men are up here. And the old tradition of men had to be the breadwinners in the family is no longer holding water. So that has to change. So if you look at it from a pay equity position, when you begin to get the equitable balance of compensation in place, it begins to have a positive impact on the individual family, the individual person, their self-esteem, and their ability to be able to provide for their loved ones. That has an impact on the rest of society in terms of consumer goods that can be purchased, participation in the economy, ideas that can be generated to create businesses, etc. So there's the wealth gap, there's a compensation gap, and all those things need to be critically looked at, and some pressure applied in society in order to get us to a point where we recognize that this is a problem, we've got to solve it, and if we continue to go with the imbalance of wealth gap in this country and in the world, there could be social unrest like we've never seen before. If you think the George Floyd protests worldwide were off the charts. When people begin to get hungry, they can't take care of their families, they can't pay their bills, and they start seeing like this 1% or the half of 1% continuing to grow in their wealth. Like we just saw a report in Forbes today That's a problem. We need to address it and address it quickly.
Yeah,
And I think
definitely. I think,
the workplace has the opportunity to make that happen.
yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think even at that level of transparency, like companies need to have that and need to be regularly publishing reports, letting people know what exactly is the data out there. And then I think that's the way people can start to proceed into making it, solving that problem.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Rachel. So, we've got a lot of work to do in corporate America now. The corporations really have to take the lead on this. Government can only do so much. They can only legislate so much. Companies have to recognize that there's a strategic advantage that they gain for having a diverse swath of people that represent the global population in their workforces, that bring their tools, their talents, their skills, their toolbox to the table to help that company grow, develop, increase their market share, increase their total shareholder return, increase ROIC, and all those good things will increase. What happens, it has a trickle over, not a trickle down, a trickle over effect to all of the people that company touches, not just the workforce, but the extended families as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's been very insightful, Bradie. Like, I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge on this topic because I know it's very, very important, and a lot of companies are working on it, but I think there's still a lot more work to be done.
There's a lot of work to be done, right? Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Rachel, thank you so much for taking time. I appreciate it and allowing me
Thank
the opportunity
you.
to speak to you on this subject. It's a passion for me, okay?
Thank you so much. I learned a lot, so I really appreciate it.
Bradie used his experience in the United States to provide some great insights into the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, but also the costs of not addressing this. We also touched upon how providing equal opportunities for all in the workplace is no longer a checkbox exercise for companies today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Why not check out the other videos in the series, or go straight to the next video on the state of chatbots and conversational AI with Martin Redstone. You don't want to miss it.